Hello. I did not really feel like recording anything tonight. Um, Typically, holidays are really bad for me, and I usually depressed, but today not really. It's another day. Um, no answer again from Brandy. I sent her an email just now. Um, it's important to keep trying, and I need to remind people that this is completely normal for her. Um, it was something completely different when she was texting and communicating back more regularly. That hasn't happened since we were together a long time ago. And that was something that always struck with me. She always got back with me almost right away. The time she didn't, there were big problems. Um, but we'll talk about that in the future. I wanted to continue with yesterday's topic. My grandparents on my father's side. So we talked a little bit about Papa Red, and what I could remember about him. I did remember his name before um, I went to sleep. It's Elvis. And before I sleep and in the shower, always times where I'm most lucid. And I even have a little practice memory game I do where if I'm having trouble, I will not do anything else and I will try to think about a name and I remember a face. The catch, which isn't very good, is that it's the same person, the same name. Sometimes I can remember right away, other times it takes me seconds or minutes. So, did that yesterday. Um, so today we could talk about my grandma on my dad's side, Nana. I won't say her real name because she would curse me from the grave. Um, it's probably safe to say she was embarrassed by her name. She hated her birth name. I'm not sure why, besides I don't know who would name their child that name, but um, just an old-timey name, long out of favor, if it ever was. So Nana's what she went by. There are probably few people in the world who attempt to be kinder than her. So that was very nice. And she was your very typical grandma, loved to cook, loved to have people over. Fortunately, due to circumstances and who she decided to marry, I don't know much about that time. They talk very little about it. Um, Papa Red, an abusive man, ended up having um, children with anger issues, my dad and my uncle. So on that front, Nana was none too happy. Um, and it goes to show you that even if you have a loving type of parent, if you have one parent consumed by anger or rage, they don't counterbalance. Of course, that's not to say that good doesn't come out of having a nice parent there. They just don't equal out. Um, so it was usually a treat to go visit her. Um, the entire time I've known her, she lived in the same spot in a trailer in Houston. Not many miles. All my grandparents lived within miles of each other. So that was nice, except they lived in Houston. Um, but going to visit one typically meant you would visit the kink here is that since my parents divorced, and they fought each other to the detriment of their own children, um, it was taboo during one quote parent's time to go visit the other parent's parents. Like, um, if I was with my dad, it was taboo to go visit my mom's parents. Um, and so Nana had no problem with my mother. And so my mother was always welcome and encouraged to come visit, especially if we were around, but even if not. This, however, would inflame not necessarily my father, but She Bitch, the woman that he ended up marrying some years after my mom. So, uh, so we'd have to keep it secret sometimes. Secret to visit a grandparent. Just to go to show you the level of vitriol that they possessed, consumed them to the detriment of everyone. So, um, her her place, never changed much. You could look at a photo from my early childhood to when she passed, and the place pretty much the same. Um, she collected things that were important to her, but I wouldn't call her a hoarder. She didn't have a lot of space, so it sort of piled up. But one of her sons, my uncle, was a carpenter, built her a shed, and so she had some more room to store stuff. But um, it was mostly enjoyable. Now she had some neighbors who were characters. I don't remember. I think it was Dorothy. One lady always had ice cream or something. Typical like old lady neighbor, give candy. Some other ones were some. I don't remember much about them. Hardworking, day working dudes, drank, smoked when they were done. Didn't hang out with them much. Sometimes there was a horse in the lot next to us, so we could go feed the horse or something. But it eventually became empty, just trees and stuff. But real nice person. She worked a long time. I remember past, when people shouldn't be working anymore. Of course, she needed the money, and um, she worked in insurance, um, typing a lot. Um, Real stereotypical if you go far enough back into what women were allowed to work. And then she would, like I mentioned before, visit Papa Red, make sure he was eating, his blood sugar was right. Um, so she was kind. She was religious, but not pushy religious, like my parents were. Um, Now, she had undertones which uh, are not acceptable. Really shouldn't be acceptable in any day, but um, she had a sort of ignorant racist um, view. I know there was one time I went grocery shopping with her. This is not necessarily when I was a tiny boy, so we're probably 90s or later. We were at the checkout counter, and don't even want to repeat it here, but she said something about there was a black kid bagging the groceries and she used the N word or something, and not like derogatory. It was a casual in slang, like, "Oh, is that gonna bag my groceries?" She's from another time, man. So I said, Nana, you can't say that, and I was embarrassed to hell. Um, it wasn't the safest neighborhood either. I got robbed one time to get to the grocery store. You didn't have to drive through this alley, but it was the quickest way. I don't know why I ever did. I got robbed there one time. Um, um, I remember as a kid, even as a baby, but even as my siblings or cousins would come over, she would turn one of these chairs, like flip the cushion up so the baby couldn't roll off, and it's always interesting. And speaking of which, my cousins, from my mom's side of the family, she was happy always to have them over. She didn't give a damn about um, my dad or she bitch's problem with us coming to visit or whoever. But of course, they would make it hard on her. They would put retribution on her in some way, especially she bitch, just a hateful woman. Um, so it was terrible growing up and watching these adults act like selfish children, just trying to win a game of possess the children. Uh, just terrible. Um, I used to play with like her kitchen utensils under her table and pretend like I was fixing things. Man, she had so many just drawers full of different like she cooked all the time. She had a tool for everything you would ever want. I remember when we were real little, we would make homemade ice cream with a little bucket thing, and you put the different ingredients in, and like you freeze it overnight. That was always fun. Oh, and banana milkshakes. So she would always freeze these bananas. Always have frozen bananas in her freezer, and then put them in a blender with some milk and ice cream, and who knows what, I don't know. It's just delicious, delicious. And uh-oh, my internet went out. Um, and so uh, the other thing, what's dressing? Oh my God. Okay, so she had these homemade recipe cookbooks from her lifetime, from her family, from friends, and she had just gathered and written. There was one time I had wanted to digitize it. There was just too many, and back then there wasn't a good program for me to do it. So I never ended up doing it. I started it once, and I couldn't find a program um, that had everything I wanted. Um, but she just books, recipes everywhere, little index cards of recipes, and the dressing. I hate dressing. I hate it. If I happen to ever come eat food with you and you have dressing, you just have to expect to be disappointed. It's not you, it's me. But hers, I would eat on its own. I loved it. And my mother at one time, the whole time, she always tried to copy it. It's never the same. She buy the same ingredients, the same brands. I can always tell the difference. Tried to trick me one time. It didn't work. Um, I just loved it so much. It was so good. I didn't like everything. It wasn't, she didn't. She made these sweet potatoes. I don't like sweet potatoes and some other stuff. So it wasn't. She just had uh, the answer to all of my edible desires. Um, but she was always accommodating, and she knew what you liked or didn't like, and so there would always be something, even if you didn't like something. And you always felt like you were hurting her feelings if you didn't like something she made. So you got to be real careful about it. Um, but she, it's hard to say. In many ways, she was bright and sharp, and she could take a joke and she could cut you, and she could be cut a little bit sometimes. But even then, she would recognize when someone was being cut, and she might throw a little dig out there every now and then. Um, so she would play along a little bit. Uh, she knew I liked games a lot. She'd always try to play games. She knew she was gonna lose. Now I'll just tell you, most people were gonna lose when they played me, but um, she knew she was gonna lose. She still played. She got along real well with my grandparents on my mom's side. She didn't give a damn about whatever feuding was going on. She would go over there and visit. Uh, they went to the same church together for a long time. That was around the corner. Um, and so they knew each other from there as well as, obviously from my mom and dad. So, she was a good woman. Um, it's I would say, this is not necessarily the fault of any one person. She probably had trouble adapting to a changing world, and I don't think she had any interest in a changing world. She liked what she had. Um, she cared more about her family uh, than other things, and that's not a bad thing at all. Um, she became ill. Um, I don't remember exactly the timeline of events, so if I mess this up, I'm sorry. I remember, I don't remember what I was doing at the time. I want to say I was in Austin. Something was happening. She had some strokes. The fire department had come a couple times. She fell down. One of her kids wanted to move her to a home. I want to say it was Uncle Rodney. I'm not sure. I may be mixing this up. My dad did not want to move her. She did not want to move. She had lived in this place her whole life, but it was clear something was wrong, and that she needed help. So I don't remember what I was doing at the time. Uh, I did not want her to go to a home, so that's when I moved down to Houston. Now I'm going to tell everyone I do not want to be in Houston. I don't like it. I don't think I've ever liked it. But I came down, took her to her appointments, helped her up the stairs, drove her car, helped her get in and out of the car. Um, there were some problems during that time. There was one time she accused me of taking some money. She found that money. I didn't take it. Um, she would forget some things. But she was old. It wasn't she's no spring chicken, you know. Shit, she probably remembers more than I do now. It's tough, man. Yeah, she was a good woman. Real good, you know. Able to see past the bad that people do. I don't know what's in her heart. She forgave him, but she didn't treat him bad. Even I struggle with this. You know, I try to copy um, being able to look past what Brandy does, turn the other cheek, give them the chance to do the right thing. Hell, she did it better than I do it. I don't know how she did it. Now, she had a lot of different family, and there's some way through her that her family or we're actually related to She Bitch's family. Is somebody out in California? I don't remember exactly how it works. That's a terrifying thought. Um, but yeah, so that's a thing too. Most of her side of the family, I did not. We would interact with. She loved to go to Luby's after a reunion or a church or somebody was in town. That's where we would go. And Luby's is good stuff, man. Cafeteria style, a little expensive. They skimp you a little bit on the veggies and the portions. You know, you get half. They got that measured out. You're not gonna get one over on them. But I wasn't close with a lot of them, and I would struggle to tell you their names or how we're related. Um, but she could tell you, and that's one thing that I hate with that loss of grandparents is that knowledge that they have, that the gap between generations. Um, sucks. Now there was a few good memories with her. I remember growing up, you know, I used to my uncle, her son has lived up in Dallas Fort Worth area for as long as I can remember, and so it, it's it's not that far from Houston to Dallas. Uh, I don't remember, what, like 3.5, 5 hours, depending on where you're at in traffic. Um, but I had always told her growing up, you know, first thing I'm gonna do when I get my license is drive you up there to see Uncle Rodney, and well, that's sure as hell what I did. As soon as I got that license, we got in the car and I drove her up there. Um, Now I don't have that memory anymore. I remember that I did it, and there are a few others like that, memories that she's told me. I remember her telling me we went fishing. This when I was real young, like baby young, and she said I threw my pole in the water and I caught something. Now I suspect, because when you talk about fishing around Houston or anything, uh, I suspect that it was probably some catfish farm place or something. Just probably stick your hand in there and noodle one out. But um, she always liked to talk about that one. Now, one of the things I don't necessarily agree with, she tried real hard to maintain neutrality between all the bickering, selfish parties involved. I think try to keep the peace. I think that's admirable to a certain point, but I don't think you can cater to the people who commit violence or manipulate children. I don't think they should be given that seat at the table as long as they keep doing that. But I ain't gonna fault her for that. She did what she thought was best. And it ain't her fault that those other people acting up. That she bitch was the way she was, that Harold and Janine the way they were. Or hell, me or the other cousins when we were acting up. Yeah. So I'm sure there's a lot more memories. Remember I used to watch a lot of TV over there, all the old shows. She liked the Golden Girls. Oh, Betty White's still alive. Y'all know that? Golden Betty White was old when I was little. She was in the Golden Girls, man. MASH. Watched a lot of that. And she got them old channels, you know. Old. She had a black and white TV in her room for the longest time. She had these little peanut can jars, lids, and I always put change in it. And every time we go over there as kids, we run to see how much more money we had in our little jar. It was nice. She always had a lot of pictures, and growing up, I very much against pictures. I don't like them. They gave me anxiety to the point where I would hide and run away. So you won't find many of them with me as a kid. I'm a little different now because I have a daughter and she's not that way. She's not the way I was. So, um, you do things you don't like for your children that they like. A lot of good there to emulate and learn from. And yeah, I hope that was clear enough. Clear enough to get a good picture of what's good to pass down. I don't really do well in these stories, but I try. Hope y'all have a good day. Bye.